Welcome to this session on open banking and human insights for finance. Today, Erin and I will share some insights on female finance, and we will share the story of anthropology. But let's start by presenting ourselves. My name is Anette. I work with innovation and strategy in research, speaking, and moderating. I have a long background in finance and fintech, including, of course, open banking and partnerships. Currently, I'm an associate consultant at Anthropology.
And my name is Erin Taylor. I'm the founder of Finanças, and I'm an anthropologist by training. I come from Australia originally, where I did my PhD in anthropology at the University of Sydney. But at some point, I decided that I wanted to start my own business, and here I am today.
I will now share my screen so that we can go through the two cases. Right. Open finance and digital transformation are changing financial markets and business models. Technology is the main driver, and open finance allows completely new ways of working with customer data, creating solutions designed to customer needs. There are high hopes this will lead to more diversity and inclusion.
But customer behaviour is not really very well understood and not even very well researched. Anthropology can help us to understand people's financial needs and bring new perspectives to generate innovative solutions.
Let's talk you through our findings on financial services for women in a bit of an open banking perspective. So first of all, Erin was asked to do a book chapter on women as financial consumers. She kindly invited me to join her, and I think we were both surprised to find how little of this market was described. We dived deeper in the two follow-up reports that you can see on the screen, and we found that women often feel underserved in finance, or even unserved. Like I said, it's quite widely considered that open banking will help ensure better services for women, as well as for other underserved groups. This is mainly contributed to the fact that access to more financial data, particularly to the detailed transaction data, will help new entrants provide better services. Our aim today is not to discuss the market trends in general, but to dive into the creation of solutions for people. I will talk about female finance, like I said, and Erin will tell the story of anthropology, a newcomer. This slide shows you the ecosystem that we found when looking into services for women. It includes about 100 companies, fintechs, as well as incumbent financial service providers. What you can't see here is that most of these offers are quite recent. Many companies established within the last 5 years. And if you go into the reports, you will notice that quite a number of the establishment present here do not provide traditional financial services at all, like transactions, savings, or loans. They provide networks, learning opportunities, and events. But when we look at the total market for female services, it is not well documented for a variety of reasons. But as you can see here in the main overview, the lack of attention to female customers is expensive. Oliver Wyman estimated a few years back that financial service providers miss out on about $700 billion per year in profit by not catering good enough for women. I will not go through all the individual data, but just mention a few important facts and some insights. Women across the globe still make less money than their male partners, and they still have less access to banking services than men, all types of banking services. Yet women make or influence at least 80% of household decisions, spending decisions, and financial decisions around that, like buying a home or planning retirement. Together, they represent about 20 trillion US dollars a year in spending. And women's wealth is growing faster than men's and now represents about a third of world's total wealth. So you can see that this is quite an important market, and it's not very clever to underestimate it. Let me take you through a few examples, because what we did to find information in this area was to dive into offers targeted at women. We first found some older examples like marketing pushes, where you could see a happily shopping woman with a handbag and a pink credit card. Or it could be specific types of insurance where the woman's handbag was particularly mentioned. But like many organizations in this space, we found that this is really not what women are looking for. So if you look at some of the examples we see here, one of the first providers of services for women is Ellevest. They work with investment in a simple life situation-based solution. So as you can see on the screen, you just answer a few simple questions about your situation and your age, etc. When you start saving, and advice can get back to you. Ellevest also provides you with information on how to learn to be a better investor. And they provide you with a network and mentoring solutions. This is interesting because other findings from interviews with women show that women look at investments in a broader sense than men do. They don't just tend to look at risk profiles or profits. They want to look at life decisions, whether to save towards a new business, towards your children's education, or for retirement. In the right-hand corner, you can see a new network called Female Invest, established in Denmark a few years back by students who wanted to invest, but couldn't find any women to work with, only men. So they made their own network, and they're quite successful now. A different example is a US company, Navit, providing financial management solutions and payments for women. They're based in the US. So they look at financial services as a holistic venture and include health data, fitness data, and also a mood tracker that will help you know how you feel about your finances. Are you scared you can't meet your obligations? Are you mad at yourself for overspending? Or are you happy and feeling good about yourself for the way you're handling things? So these are the types of examples that we went through. And this led us to the idea of categorizing characteristics of services for women in 4 groups: design, features, delivery, and values. The design should be clear, user-friendly, and support women's needs in everyday decisions and spending. It should be convenient. Features should cater to women's life situations and to their social responsibilities. Women still more often than men tend to be the carer in the family and take care of elderly persons as well as children. And they should include communities, ability to talk to your peers about what happens and how you progress in your learnings, and possibly also even academies or learning opportunities. On the delivery side, we found that women are keen users of mobile and digital solutions. These are convenient and quick, and that they also like some kind of belonging, possibly providing value in a loyalty scheme. And then values are important. Women tend to look more at the values of the services they provide and the type and profile of the company they're working with. This could be sustainability, could also be handing back to society or supporting your local society. Could be whether the company you work with has a good gender policy or works with inclusion. And I'll show you just one example of this. This is a word cloud that we did from the value statements and the missions of the companies that we work with. On the left-hand side, you see the companies that we studied. On the right-hand side, a similar group of fintechs and financial services providers. And if you dive a little bit into the words in the word cloud, you will see that on the women's side, values like freedom, independence, creating, building, health, and access stand out. Whereas on the more traditional side, it's like money, bank, simple, innovation, mission. So these are insights on the human side that we would advocate that you take with you when building services for women or just for people. Insights to combine with the customer data that you will find available from open banking or open finance. I will now let Erin take over to tell you how she has taken this to the next level.
Thank you, Annette. Now, there are definitely some very interesting and innovative products on the market aimed at women, and open banking does seem to be helping to make these possible. It also seems pretty clear that there is a demand for them as well among the female market. But we don't have a very clear picture of how women are using these products and services. In fact, it isn't just women we're not clear about. We actually know very little about consumers of financial services at all. Now, you may well wonder what I mean by that, because of course, all kinds of financial service providers do very good customer research. But usually this research focuses on getting a product or service to market. Researchers in these companies usually have little time to do exploratory research that could shed light on how customers' behaviours are changing or discover things they might need that we haven't even thought of yet. And the problem is that our innovation isn't usually that human-centric. We often think of innovation as involving developing new technical solutions or perhaps applying technology to human problems in novel ways. And we have many examples of what can go wrong when we get overexcited about technology, as Google Glass, shown on the slide, is a very good example of. Open banking is no different. Most discussion of open banking centres upon the technology that underpins it or the regulatory environment. And I have been on several panels where any discussion of consumers asks the question of how we can get consumers to trust fintechs enough to agree to let them use their bank account data. Not exactly a consumer-centric approach. And to my mind, this is exactly the wrong question. We shouldn't be asking how we can get consumers to agree to do what we want, but rather we should be asking what consumers need and want now and what they might need and want in the future. This requires quite a different kind of research. And this is why I founded Finanthropology, a company that brings finance and anthropology together. I will say more about it in a few minutes, but first I want to explain why I think it's useful to combine finance with anthropology. So what does it mean to think anthropologically? Well, the first thing to bear in mind is that all financial behaviour is cultural. We are all grown up in certain cultures that have certain ideas about how finances should be managed, notions about savings, notions about spending. In fact, even something like tax is cultural. People have culturally informed opinions about tax and whether it is in fact obligatory to pay it or whether it's okay to avoid it. And that is a very important factor and one that we often overlook. It's very seldom that we will do research into the cultural aspects that do affect that financial behaviour. And I'm sure you can imagine how useful they could be when thinking about things like, well, how should we build this financial management app? How do people even normally manage finances where they come from? A second extremely important thing in my mind is that people often, or rather usually, don't understand their own financial behaviour. And this is true whether you are, let's say, a taxi driver or a professor of finance. People have to think very long and hard to try to explain to you why they make financial decisions or organise their finances in certain ways, because a lot of it's actually subconscious. Now, anthropology can help here because what anthropologists have always done for well over 100 years is go to places and try and make sense of what people are doing, even if they cannot explain them themselves. So that is part of our method. And to do that, we use observation in natural contexts. So in finance, for example, that could mean hanging around in shops to see how people pay, or spending time with people in their homes to look at how they actually do things around the house that, you know, might have financial applications. For example, do they sit on the couch and look at their smartphone and do their purchases there? Or do they go to the computer to make those purchases? There are all kinds of things that can be observed in terms of finances. Anthropology also focuses on discovering the unexpected, and this is very important because if we go out to do research with a preconceived set of questions or a hypothesis to test, that does not leave a lot of space to discover brand new things. They are indeed excellent methods, but if you actually want to discover the new, then you need to go out with a much more open mind. And finally, the benefit of anthropology is that it can be combined with many different methods. The main method we use is ethnography, which is that observing in natural context. But in fact, anthropologists will often mix up things like interviews, focus groups, even experiments, and many other methods in order to build a full picture once we've done those observations. Not so long ago, I published this report you see on the right, which is all about different methods being used around the world by researchers working in finance and how they've adapted those methods specifically to understand consumer behaviour. Here is a very quick example. I did this study of payments in the Netherlands using one of my most favourite methods, which is called the portable kit study. In this method, you interview someone, but rather than just stopping with asking them questions, you then ask them to bring out their handbag or their wallet out of their pocket, or in some people's case, that will just be their mobile phone. It will be the only thing they carry with them when they leave the house. And you ask them to take out everything they use from that item, that handbag or phone, and display it on the table. And then you interview them about what they're carrying with them. And from a financial perspective, this is extremely illuminating because you get to see the cards, the cash. You look into people's phones at the apps they use to make payments, or, you know, Google Wallet, for example, or maybe they buy stuff on their Kindle. And in so doing, you can build up quite a strong picture of their financial life, particularly what they need to carry with them when they're out and about. And this method especially is fascinating to do because when you interview people like this, they realize all kinds of things that they never thought about before, behaviors that are subconscious. And they'll start asking questions like, oh, okay, why do I keep all these receipts in my wallet? Why do I keep this card when I never use it? And it makes them more conscious actually about their actions. And then people will start reorganizing their financial lives in front of you. So not only is it a good method to actually discover new things, but in fact, it does have an impact, usually in a positive way, on the participant as well. Now, that brings us back to Finthropology, the company I founded. Essentially, what we do is we help organisations to understand people's financial behaviour and innovate to meet their needs. We work for companies that offer financial services, NGOs running financial inclusion programs, and universities doing research on financial behaviour. Our services are bundled into two overlapping areas. The first is research and insights, which can mean doing original research of the type I have already described, or drawing insights out of data that is already available. And the second is customer strategy, which means working with organisations to figure out a plan for understanding consumers better in this fast-changing market. And finally, our overall goal is to help create a financial world that is fit for human beings. What we mean by that is that we support the development of tools that truly fit with people's actual behaviours and needs, rather than with what we think they need. This slide shows some of the main areas that we think are important to focus on in order to create such a world. Some of these are exactly what you would expect to see. For example, financial health, women in finance, and sustainable finance, though all three obvious contenders. Some others may not be so obvious. For example, we are very interested in recent efforts by companies to recognize that people have emotional relationships with their finances and to build features into their products that help them better understand and manage their feelings about their finances. Research shows that it is impossible to put our feelings aside when dealing with our finances. And when we pretend that those feelings don't exist, we make all kinds of bad decisions. And so when we talk about creating a financial world fit for humans, we aren't just talking about financial inclusion and banking the unbanked. We advocate for a much more subtle approach that takes human behaviour seriously. So that's it from us. We hope that you have enjoyed the presentation, and we encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions or would like to discuss these topics further.